IT strategies for doing more with less. So here you're aware of what the Microsoft solutions out there. That what can you do as an IT leader inside your organization to really look at, hey, whether you are going through and in this difficult economic times, weird economic times. In fact, we see all the news of the tech companies that are doing layoffs, and yet all of the non-tech companies, that the other businesses out there, just everybody seems to be hiring. And so it's a great time to go and grab some of those former tech company employees and bring them into your line of business operations. But some thoughts around this, and Jonathan, love to get your thoughts around each one of these. But like, number one, communication. What can an organization do to improve and do more with less with communication? As I think about streamlining, I automatically think of how many meetings are we having? Are we, it's always good to go in and optimize, to kind of iterate on the models that are out there. One of the things that I always recommend is go and look at your monthly meeting schedule. How efficient are those? How can we improve the way that we do meetings to make sure that we are best using people's time and that we are getting the most out of those? We've defined the purpose, the intent, and the outcomes of each of those meetings so that we're just not scheduling time, wasting people's time, taking up people's time, because we're using that to get organized. I always recommend get organized first with your communications, and then have the plan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, communication's got to be two ways, and I think it's a matter of finding what are the right channels that employees are going to respond to and really feel comfortable giving feedback and making sure that there's 360 communication within the organization. Sometimes communication is one way, and it's the company trying to inform employees about things going on, either important business data or important events or support. I always think of this as where is the right place to be doing that and when is the right moment? Too often it's in the middle of a long meeting where, half the people aren't paying attention. And often it's shown once and then like no one remembers. And I think what a lot of companies have to think about is, narrow it down to the most critical stuff they need to know. And then you have to reinforce that message, right, over and over and over again. And you have to look for different channels. I mean, near into what we do, emails can be a great place. Hey, you can have it right in every internal email that goes on, reinforcing that message about this upcoming event or this upcoming training program or support we give on the HR side, or there's a really important business metric that everyone needs to be aware of. And you could see that, and they could see it in every communication that goes forward, and it's just going to kind of drive it in. It's not that dissimilar from sales training, where you have to do constant reinforcement of salespeople to really drive in how to present a product right and how to think about the different attributes. You have to do the same thing on communications within an organization.
And one thing I just thought of too is that the other new features, going back to the Microsoft, is the new Teams premium capabilities. I think you remember a few years back when Microsoft had their future of meetings video, and I think it was at like their partner conference when they did it live on stage, but the video is still out there. And one of them was that the automations could help to define, to make sure that there is a plan before you go into a meeting to help automate the meeting once you're in that live. And then following the post activity, the AI would actually go through and find, based on the conversation, the transcript that was gathered, it would say like, hey, Christian, you had these 3 tasks. Jonathan, you get a reminder that these 2, actions came out of these 2 tasks, and it could automatically drop that in the notes. And so we all see that. We can then, mention other people, create automated tasks, and then take action on those things, but it would automatically compile those notes. You could go back to the recording. So all those things that we talked about years ago are now available through the Teams, or will be available through the Teams premium capabilities. So it's all about, so much about it, that improving that company, that internal communication.
It's almost like you have a built-in EA to Teams that's actually helping you with the process of how do you run meetings effectively. Too many meetings, I mean, you can think about the ones in person, no one prepares. Even the people that are holding the meetings don't really prepare for it. Everyone just kind of comes in, you have a conversation, no one takes notes, everyone leaves. Everyone has a different view on what happened and what was agreed to, and it's kind of pandemonium. And I think with the automation opportunities, Microsoft's really taking advantage. And it's not even just them, they're making a lot of these tools available to external partners so that the partners can innovate and iterate on the capabilities there. In my previous role, we had an integration with Microsoft Teams, and just working with that team over there was incredible how they were thinking about this and how they were really focused on people moving the effectiveness of these meetings forward. And of course, when you're talking about doing more with less, really making sure every moment that you're, especially with resources, tons of resources meeting, and you think about the costs, that's one of the most critical ways you can do more with less is just really optimizing for every moment.
And there's a great question that was just asked from the audience. So all these tools are great for improving productivity. However, smaller companies on these platforms lack the budget and skills to manage the platforms themselves. What do we see Microsoft as far as tools to help organizations manage the platforms themselves? I'll be honest. This is one of the most difficult times. If you're in there with Microsoft 365, with anyone, there's multiple admin centers all over the place. While there are some streamlined capabilities, you have the ability to go in and to automate through Power Platform some of those activities. On the back end, I mean, Microsoft is not, that I'm aware of, building like one dashboard to manage across all those things. I mean, there are in the records management and compliance, there's the Purview, which is looking to scale across workloads with some of those capabilities. But it is a difficult proposition. There are third-party tools that do a much better job of creating a single pane of glass, a dashboard for management of those things. But especially for an SMB, you have those admin centers. And so that's why it's so important. A lot of the out of the box, I know I'm getting down in the weeds of this a bit, Jonathan, but like with Teams and creating your, like provisioning process and automating that process is so important to make sure that you're setting up guardrails for management. I mean, governance is such an important topic out in the Microsoft ecosystem. And I'm sorry to say that out of the box, it's a big task because you're going to all those different locations.
It is. I love Microsoft, but it's a big task with any of the platforms that do this out there. Microsoft is no different.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of smaller players, especially startups, work with external IT teams who actually handle this for them, and will go. A lot of this is a one-time setup. You kind of discuss what you need, you get it all set up, and very little changes over time. And when it is, it's usually smaller maintenance. What I've seen be very effective is working with external IT teams that have experience, can ask the right questions, know how to set it up to avoid problems, rather than kind of flubbing your way through it and then, trying to figure out what's broken and doing this like constant management upgrade path on it.
Yeah, that's why I said understand, look, I'm a collaboration guy. I look at the collaboration stack, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, Yammer, now Viva Engage. I look at those tools, and as much as you can automate the process, have documented, know your document your content and data life cycles, and then put in through those each of those workloads to make sure that you're consistent in your application of those policies and procedures. It's a very manual process to go and identify and monitor audit logs and I mean, that's where, again, you can go and build Power Platform solutions, and there are third-party solutions that are out there as well. So, yeah, another great topic that we could spend an hour on, just that topic. So the next category to think about is that training. So, I mean, in tough economic times, most organizations, one of the first things they do is they cut employee training when development, personal development, employee development budgets. This is actually an important time to double down on training and provide even more opportunities for employees to improve or add new skills. And there's so much that you can do, again, through, you have the Viva Learning, you have, even if you don't have the Viva Learning, Viva module up and running, or a third-party training platform that you're leveraging, just to be aware of the free training that's out there through LinkedIn, through other vendors. There's so much that's out there. When employees are upset about economic times, if you've had to do cuts within your organization, there's fewer people. One way to hold on to people, to keep them engaged, is to provide them with more skilling opportunities and to recognize the people that are going through and utilizing that. I worked for a previous company that provided, and it was a budget for training, and it was in the schedule. And then there was a very negative perception around people that actually used it. They made time in between their daily tasks to then go and take a 1 or 2 day internal training course to improve themselves. It was all within the budget. It was in their annual employee plan. And yet it was looked at like, well, there's so much going on. And they took 2 days to go do that course.
Was that organizationally they looked down on it, or just individuals?
No, it was kind of a theme in the organization to look at that. And as a manager, as a people,
you waste time to make yourself better so you can do a better job for the company.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But so that's something I'd like, be very careful about that. That's why having recognition for people that went and completed that upskilled, you want to recognize people for that, encourage that, makes people, like their jobs more when they're learning new things and getting better at what they're doing, and then looking for opportunities to incorporate what they've learned into their daily jobs. That could actually be part of the outcome, is like, hey, go through the training. It's paid for. We've time budgeted this. We've made time for this. But part of it is you have to show us how that class you took can be applied to your job. I think that's a fair thing to do, but not look at it negatively.
People can be just very short-sighted and not really see the long-term benefits of programs like this. And it's kind of a lack of, I don't know if I want to say management prowess, or just, understanding really what's going to grow the company over time versus today.
Well, that's why I think it's a great segue right into the innovation, because I'm always a big believer in creating a culture of innovation, rewarding people for experimenting, to try things. This kind of goes back to my project management philosophy too, is that you don't penalize people for making mistakes necessarily. Of course, there's people with repeated mistakes, but you have to give people room to learn, and depending on what kind of mistakes that are made, but especially to recognize innovation. When people go above and beyond, come up with a new process, a new method, a new product or tool, to go in and create tooling, especially if you're leveraging the Power Platform. If you have people that are in there automating, I mean, that's one of the great stories of Power Platform these days, is there are, Microsoft highlights a lot of these stories. Like there's the gentleman at that worked out of London Heathrow that was in, I believe, was in like the baggage part of Heathrow operations, and had some ideas about automating, found the Power Platform tools, went and built some tools to help with reporting, to help the job. And it then got deployed airport wide. And here he got highlighted and his story and at events by Microsoft for improving operations. So you need to recognize and reward that innovation. It's going to do a lot for employee well-being. It'll do a lot for, of course, just improving and iterating on that, that continuous improvement attitude inside an organization.
Yeah. And you see more and more, especially on the development side, innovation days where you just give developers free rein. Some companies give them a certain percentage of their time to go and work on other ideas and initiatives of theirs. It's a great way to kind of foster that experimentation approach of what else could we be doing, and what's really working for you. If you don't do this, people feel like they're in a box and they can, the limits of what they can do are constrained. I think it's a bad for morale. And B, I don't think it's good for the company. I think a lot of people have bright ideas, and sometimes they expand beyond their area, the subject area, or their position. And if you give them a chance, they might surprise you, and they might come up with some really unique, interesting stuff that you hadn't thought of.
Here's something that I'm always surprised that I have to phrase it like this, but that did you know that your employees used to have other jobs, most likely? That they have other things. I mean, I had an interaction in a past company that I went and shared the fact that I said, well, I had years of working in another industry. I worked with oil and gas exploration companies and had a lot of contacts. And I was told repeatedly, is that when another team, the sales team, was looking for help, like, Christian, hey, that's not your role. Your focus is not that. I said, right, but I have years of experience helping in exactly what they're asking for help in. I know it's not part of my role today, but why would you not? Okay. Why would you not allow me to go and have those conversations and help impart my knowledge? So this kind of, I think, bridges between innovation and that employee well-being is, I'm so glad that this topic has kind of come to the forefront. And when you talk about Microsoft, is talk about Microsoft Viva. That's what it's all about. The employee well-being, or at the core of Viva. But the broader topic here, I think, because burnout is such a real thing. We all have virtual meeting webinar fatigue. So constantly looking at what is the health and well-being of our employees. How are we helping people to better manage time management across their days so that they're getting their work done, we're achieving our outcomes, but that we're doing it in a balanced way. It's so critical.
Yeah, when you talked a moment ago about, people had jobs previously and kind of that, it reminded me of the Toyota TPS model. A lot of people don't realize that Kanban was invented by Toyota, who implemented this great new process a while ago. And it was really focused on maximizing the capabilities of their employees to the fullest. And they really kind of rethought how factories worked, how innovation worked. They put this whole plan in place where any employee could stop the entire production floor. It was crazy, some of the things they did. And it led to all this great new process, which a lot of us use today and don't even think about or don't even realize where it came from. And it was them believing in their own people that they had more capabilities than they assumed they did.
I love that. Two more categories here in the IT realm. The first one around automation. We talked a lot about it. I think, again, you can't get around talking about Power Platform and the ability for business users, for power users, for the people that know the data, that know the business process and where there are opportunities to automate, to give them the tools and the ability to go in there and do more. The only guidance, being the governance guy, is making sure that you have a governance strategy, that you're reviewing these solutions, because a lot of these solutions that are not, and this is where doing more with less, Power Platform and automation is key. But you want to make sure that you have a process for reviewing these solutions. Like Jonathan, if you're a non-coder, you're in building a solution that's going to be cross-departmental and we want to expand it. It looks good. We want to make sure as an organization that we go in and we look at your solution. Is it going to scale properly? Does it have the right permissions, the right, identity and authentication of the users around there? Is it accessing data in the right place? Is it storing data in the right place? Is it, what does the life cycle look like around each of those solutions? So audit, review, discuss the scalability of those solutions, but really have a focus in your organization of where can we optimize, where can we automate.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more expensive than the time of the people who work, within your organization, and you have to look at every activity they're doing and understand, are these value add to the growth of the company? If they're not, if they're just toiling to get things done that aren't adding to your story, if they're not critical value add items, automate them. There's tons of ways to do it. And that's what a lot of the new vendors like us, but plenty of others are focused on, is how do we automate them away? And, even internally, when we discuss new features and new products we can build, we're constantly talking about, how's this going to help them? Is it going to create more work for them? Is it going to be more overhead? Or is this going to help them, do more with less? And, are they actually going to do it? How much time is going to take them? Are they going to think about this? And you have to take those into consideration and figure out, how am I helping optimize their time for them? Because people look at that and they understand no one wants to take on a new platform, even if it's going to help them, that's going to be this massive management undertaking. No one has the time for it. No one has the people for it. What they need is help getting it done on their behalf in the right way. And as a vendor, you have to think about that. How am I, just as you said, putting all the integrations and data strategies in place so it just intuitively works the way they need it to work without a lot of thought going into it.
Well, great example of this too is, I mean, one of the things that I love about the Exclaimer story is the ability to almost run it like a marketing campaign internally. So you can automate email responses, acknowledge of a ticket that's been added, to go and automate a process, create a more complex workflow for when onboarding new employees. And then depending on the department that they're going into, you can have an automation of the email signature that's sent to each of those employees that might be to departmental resources, for example. So you can have all of that automated on the back end, see who's actually in there as you're onboarding new employees, automatically generate those emails that go out that points them to the resources that are relevant to their new organization. So a lot of that, again, these are repetitive tasks. We're constantly, depending on the size of your organization, onboarding new people. And are we repeatedly sending them to the same places? We have, a few different templates that we're using for people that are coming into different roles or into different parts of the organization, and then automating, personalizing that experience for each of those people that are coming on board.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's a revolving door in companies. People are coming and people going every single day. There's already a ton of pressure on IT teams to help manage that process along with HR. Who's getting the laptop? Who's getting provisioned new email systems? What does that look like? And the more you put on top of them, the harder it gets. What companies really want is a way for that just to happen programmatically behind the scenes, that when they add someone in, it just kind of happens. And, that's really what we at Exclaimer focus on, is how do we just make it happen? And when someone new joins, they're automatically going to get the right signatures, whether it's internal, external, where it's going, which department, that it's just going to happen. And no one has to think about them, has to add them anymore. We're going to pick it up from Active Directory. We're going to know. And as soon as they start sending emails, it's just going to happen.
Yep. And I was just throwing in, equally important is the offboarding. People leave the company. You want to automate as much as possible because you don't want to leave up the human error, forgetting to go in and to remove somebody from a system, or to go in and look at what external content was shared and make sure that we have the proper access to that. So yeah, automation is your friend there. The last one is just a general category around reducing costs. I mean, this is something that's ongoing. I'm a W. Edwards Deming fan, so total quality management guru, where whatever your baseline is today, there's always, then you start looking at how do we optimize off that new baseline. So reducing costs is something that every organization, especially in the current economic times, that we're looking at. How are we efficiently using licenses? Are we efficiently getting the most out of the tools that we already have in place today? So that's something that you just need to continually be looking at and assessing that to make sure that you're effectively using the tools and services that you have. All right. And with that, let's jump to our third section. So wrapping up here, how we can strategize. Of course, I always recommend do a health check, do an analysis, evaluate your processes, your tools, and go in. And that should be, again, a regular review of your operations teams at looking at hardware, software, licenses, subscriptions, all of those things. And look, I mean, it's so easy. I think was it Gartner that said that was something like the average organization has well over 1,000 different apps and services that they've signed on to, different individuals in the organization. And there's a whole nother governance discussion around that of, your intellectual property is striped across all of those different applications. Does IT actually have access to those? Are we aware of what's out there? A lot of shadow IT that's out there. So going in and doing a regular health check, at least a couple times a year, where you're going in and reviewing those and just understanding, what do we have?